Good afternoon and welcome to today's Ad Week webinar, where we will be looking at CTV and the social media mindset. And it's really all about bringing creativity back to advertising. I know you're probably excited about today's webinar and our speakers today. And our webinar today is being sponsored by Mountain. I'm Stuart File, Vice President of Branded Content at Adweek, and I'm going to be your host for today's webinar. Before we begin, I'm just going to take a few moments here and do a little housekeeping, let you know what to expect from our event, and also make sure that you're familiar with the various features of our platform. Our presentation should go somewhere in the 30-minute range. Afterwards, we're going to have plenty of time for audience Q&A. So I want to invite you, if at any point during our presentation, if you have a question for our speakers, just simply use the question tool that you should see on your screen, probably right now underneath the video window. So use that tool, submit your questions during the webinar. Following our full presentation, we are going to get to as many audience questions as we can. It's not too late, by the way, to invite your colleagues to come and join us today, and we'd love it if they would. Make it easy for you. When we sent you a reminder email for today's webinar about 15 minutes ago, we were sure to include a link to the registration page in there. So grab that link, send it off to your colleagues. They still have plenty of time to register. Come on in and join us live. But if they can't make it live, today's webinar is being recorded. I saw someone's question just came in on that, asking if it's recorded, and of course all of our webinars are. So yes, today's webinar is being recorded. It's going to be available on demand, and we're going to send you a link to that on-demand recording later this afternoon, so probably 4 o'clock Eastern time. Check your email. You should see it there as part of the thank you email you get for attending today. If you are interested in getting a PDF of today's slides, we always like to make the slide deck available to you, and you can find it right now in the event resources area. You should see that tab on your screen near where you see the question tool. So head on in there at any point and feel free to download a PDF of today's deck. Lastly, I just want to remind everyone to please check out the Adweek webinar calendar, www.adweek.com/webinars with an S. We've got a jam-packed webinar schedule. If you've been on these, you've heard me say this any number of times. But the truth is we really do, and we're doing 3 or 4 webinars every week, lots of different topics. If you're involved in any form of digital advertising or advertising in general, we're really covering those, whether it's about creativity, as today's is, or CTV, data, and all the issues going on and issues related to privacy. Our sponsors are coming in, and they're not just the only experts, but they're bringing in their clients and major brands to sort of share their insights on what is going on in marketing today. So please, adweek.com/webinars, see what webinars we have coming up. You'll also get full access to our entire archive of on-demand webinars, and that includes several from our sponsors today at Mountain. So speaking of that, let me move on and introduce our speakers. First off, from Mountain, we are joined by Haeri is the VP of Marketing over there, where he leads all the product marketing efforts at Mountain. And previously, he served as a principal product designer at Symantec, working on like Norton Security and LifeLock, and was also oversaw digital marketing at Verizon Digital Media Services. But our guest speaker today, and we're really, really happy to have him, is George Dewey. George is, of course, now Mountain's Chief Brand Officer, but you probably know him as the president of Maximum Effort, which is the agency that he co-founded with Ryan Reynolds back in 2018. And of course, Maximum Effort became part of Mountain earlier this year. George, again, the ads that they have created, simple but frequently listed here in the Adweek's Ads of the Year. They've had several represented in there. Really a creative powerhouse in this area, and he's going to be sharing, obviously, a lot of his tips. But again, George's background is before this, of course, he was involved in the film industry over at Annapurna Pictures. He was head of digital He was actually, president of digital over there. Probably, I don't know, also head of digital marketing at 20th Century Fox, and again, campaigns there for movies like Deadpool and Logan and The Martian, and of course began his career in advertising over at McCann, where he really rose through the ranks. So I want to welcome them both here, and let me bring Ali up here to begin our webinar. Okay, well, welcome, Ali.
Stuart, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And thank you everyone for tuning in. There's a great crowd that we have here today, and the subject matter is fantastic. What we're going to talk about today is how to integrate a social media mindset into your creative strategy. This was really born out of a personal conversation that I was having with George, who's on the line here today, where I was asking him what a lot of people surely are attending here to kind of learn, which is, how do you do it? How are you able to react so quickly and to create campaigns that are so memorable and entertaining? And so that's exactly what we'll talk about. It was such a fascinating discussion. My first thought is we should have an audience for exactly this. And so what we'll talk about today is this concept of a social media mindset. So I'll kind of set the table a little bit, and then I'll throw it over to George to talk about precisely how that bred a lot of success over at Maximum Effort, and there's a lot to learn from that portion of the presentation. And then finally, I'll jump back in and talk a little bit more about connected TV generally, just how connected TV enables a lot of the creativity that George is going to kind of talk about. But just diving right in, what is a social media mindset? Social media fundamentally changed advertising. It made advertising reactive in record time. In the past, especially with linear TV advertising, you could certainly be reactive, but there's a built-in time delay because, as everyone knows, you can't just get advertisements on linear television at will. There's a huge process that goes into it. But social media changed advertising. You could be totally reactive. You could go live with campaigns very quickly. And some of the most memorable campaigns that we've seen on social media have been topical, because what they've been doing is they've been tapping into a zeitgeist. They've been in the moment. I think great examples of this are things that you see on Twitter. When you see a brand really kind of catch a wave with a trending topic on Twitter, and they're able to really sort of inject themselves in a conversation, or more broadly, as we'll see with some of the examples of what Maximum Effort's been doing, the pandemic has affected all of our lives, and they've brought some levity to that with some of their campaigns, acknowledging that. And so utilizing the right tools and capabilities that are available to you, it's really crucial to executing this sort of strategy and having this kind of social media mindset. Now, really, the first kind of tip is how you match your creative to the experience. And really effective creative takes advantage of the placement really well. And so, in the case of search advertising, a really effective search ad reads like a classified ad. There's no fluff. It's really succinct, because that's what the placement calls for. It's a moment of truth. Someone is looking for a particular thing, and you deliver that exactly in that moment of need, and there's no flair to it by design. And a really good social media ad, performs like really good organic social media content. It's funny, it's interesting. And so a good social media ad should really kind of like follow that same pattern. And so television offers a pretty interesting opportunity here. Now, again, historically, TV hasn't been a really nimble channel. But now with this idea of connected television, where you can get creative on live and in front of viewers in record time, it sort of introduces that kind of speed to getting that message out there that you're used to getting with social media. And so this new capability is unlocking some really strong brand touch points that didn't quite exist before. And so we're jumping around here. Let me get back here. And so being nimble is like really a new capability for everyone because of this because of the advent of CTV. And we'll get into the specifics of what you can specifically do with CTV to get that creative out there as quick as possible. But from a branding standpoint, what's particularly interesting about it is that, like social media, you can create these creative campaigns that are seemingly tailored for the moment. And so delivering your message in that sort of record amount of time, being topical, paired that with really effective audience targeting, can create a really memorable ad campaign. And like Stuart mentioned earlier, something that you'll see mentioned in the pages of Adweek. And so with all of that, I want to throw it over to George to talk about the Maximum Effort sort of journey, and also give some guidance to the audience of how they could get a little bit of that magic that Maximum Effort has. So George, take it away.
George, I think you're muted.
Yes, I was muted. Thank you. So let's just start, with what we consider to be some key dates for Maximum Effort. I have the phrase up there, necessity is the mother of invention, because that's absolutely how Deadpool got made, and it's also kind of the animating spirit for everything we do at Maximum Effort. So on July 29th, 2014, is when the Deadpool test footage leaked. We still have no idea how that got out there, but that was an inflection point a little bit for the industry, but certainly for Ryan and my's journey. First and foremost, it was the only movie in recent memory where the audience basically just, stormed the gates. When that test footage leaked, the studio really had no choice but to greenlight the movie. Such was the outcry when it got out there. And I think it's a good example of, how old powers, one, are reluctant to change, but also really have no choice but to change these days. The other thing I will note is the day after that, or 2 days after that, is when Ryan joined Twitter. And that's speaks a little bit more to Ryan. He likes diving into things hands-on, and he's kind of unafraid to try new things. And I think Twitter before that kind of terrified him, but he realized that he had to. March 27th, 2015 was when the first look was revealed. Again, the slide here is kind of innocuous now, but there was a robust debate within the studio as to whether it was too silly. And again, Ryan was instrumental in making sure that was the first look of Deadpool that got out into the world, because he knew the character and he knew the fans. February 12th, 2016 is when the movie opened, and of course became the largest R-rated movie ever to open at that point. And then the only thing I'll point out, besides the obvious about that, is I think 2 days after that, Ryan posted a video on his Instagram in the Fox office of everybody on the marketing team. And I think first the peeling back of the curtain like that, I don't know had ever been done before in that way. And so, obviously we like peeling back the curtain. We're not afraid to peel back the curtain. But also the generosity of that, the success should be shared. On October 12th, 23rd, 2017, I was actually at Annapurna Pictures. Ryan was revving up to do Deadpool 2. I sent him a birthday email, and what I got back was, thanks for the birthday wishes, but we need to meet. I have something I want to talk to you about. Shortly thereafter, we got a drink, and he explained to me that he had a first look in a production company by virtue of the success of the first Deadpool, and he wanted me to run it. And I said, that's not really my experience. And his response was, and that's exactly why I want you to do it. He really, and we really value taste and zagging over, do you have the requisite experience? And it's certainly and also send birthday emails, people. Very important. He actually didn't tell me that he had bought a gin company until February of 2018, a few months after I started. And the only thing to flag about that is that we had no idea what we were doing. The first tweet, we just kind of like we decided that morning what the copy should be and what the image should be. And then we didn't really put any content out for a few months, just because Ryan kind of calling the people behind the scenes and saying, this is not like the other celebrity alcohols that you might have been burned by in the past. So, we didn't have a master plan. We just kind of found it as we went. And that also applies to the Peloton ad that came a year and a half later. And that's really the story of this slide, which is necessity being the mother of invention. It's, we tend to just find things in the moment. And to me, that's the social media mindset that Ollie was talking about. There's nothing more terrifying than running a brand account on your own. I had, had a big rise at McCann, and it was concurrent with the rise of digital. And I was one of these traditional people that was like, gosh, geez, I'm not digital enough. And it's all rather intuitive, but there is something to handling a Twitter account or a social media account on your own, which I did for the 20th Century Fox Twitter account. Because when something goes wrong, suddenly the strategy department isn't there, the account department isn't there. It's just you having approximately 45 seconds or a minute to figure out exactly how to problem solve. And that, to me, that's the social media mindset, which is like the timelines are crunched. And, there's not really time for a process or a traditional process. And that's what happened with the Peloton ad. It started as a text chain with me and Ryan, and then we somehow found the actress. Because he owns the company, which we know is an advantage, there was really no approval process. We were shooting by Friday, and then it did extremely well. Same thing with I would say 9 or 10 months later with the Rick Moranis ad, and this one was important because we've actually run into some issues because there's really no connection with Rick Moranis and an unlimited, excellent calling plan. Other than boy, like people love Rick Moranis. And if you had done this and said, well, here's our target, here's who we want to hit, I don't know that anyone would have come up with Rick Moranis. The reality was, it was the pandemic. We were shooting in 8 days. We had some people lined up. We needed someone in New York. The requisite COVID protocols, and we started Googling celebrities in New York. And then we asked, there's no harm in asking. So again, just kind of finding it as you go. And then Satan, I don't think much needs to be said there other than, Ryan mostly loves the ads that he's not in, because what we're really trying to do is set a tone. And so the next slide is obviously we have the advantage of Ryan Reynolds, but I think an unspoken advantage that we have, or something that's not flagged a lot, is a clean sheet design. There's this principle in aerospace, but in other fields as well, is we were coming and are coming to the agency business or the marketing company business with literally no infrastructure and no preconceived notions. I had experience in the industry, Ryan did not. And as we found it, as we worked through those dates that I just took you through, we kind of arrived at what we were, which not a lot of agency startups had, because the marketing company was really a side hustle, because we were running a production company as our main business. And so, when I think of clean sheet design for our industry, particularly for the creative agency, things that I didn't like, that I didn't want to replicate, were the pitching process. I of course loved it as a creative, because you get to go and you get to, try to unveil the idea, and but it makes zero sense to just give your ideas away for free in a bake-off, and you get paid either zero or you get paid cost for probably hundreds of hours of your brightest people's time in the hope of being selected. And then after you're selected, you get into some form of price war. That was not appealing to me, and I had zero interest in doing that, and we have zero interest in doing that. So we didn't want to pitch. There are other things we really don't want to be, other than for Ryan's brands. We're not really looking to be an agency of record for anyone. We think the more the merrier, which I think is also part of social media. There are very few social media agencies that are trying to be, to flex and be, the brand advertising. We're really a more the merrier. Aspects of what traditionally makes a creative marketing company, and clean sheet it and say, okay, well, if we did this, what would it look like? And this is what this is what it kind of looks like to us, words we sometimes live by. Smart, fun, unexpected. Those are our watchwords. Smart, even when we're being super stupid, there should be a level of intelligence to it. Fun, we don't like being mean. We don't like being cynical. We don't like, even from the production side, we don't really, have a desire to make the types of materials that remind us of what a shit show humanity is. We want people to leave our material, whether it's films, TV, or content, or social, with a slightly better feeling about humanity than a worse one. And then unexpected. How do we always stay surprising? And that one is a read and react, because the one part of everything you do as a creative agency or any type of anything is there's one part of anything you can't control, and that's the cultural landscape you're releasing in. So you have a dance partner, and you should try to work with the dance partner as opposed to trying to control the dance partner. It's like, no, this is our narrative. We have to go viral in the next 3 weeks. If you don't acknowledge the humility of with humility where you are as a brand, and how you fit into the landscape, and not think that it's all about you, I think you're in for trouble. Creative, I've never particularly enjoyed the term. I like cleverness. Creative can sometimes send people down the wrong. First of all, people with creative in their title and assumes that they are more creative than the people who don't have creative in their title, which I think sends a slightly divisive message. All our creative meetings have all people in them. The other thing is, I think it can send creatives down writers and art directors and designers down the wrong rabbit hole. It's like, look at me create, as opposed to sometimes when you do something slightly asymmetric, it can be way more powerful than something overwritten or overproduced. Efficiency over hours. I think the hourly system, is a little challenging. If you have an hourly billing system, really the incentive is to bill more hours. We try to be as efficient. Fewer resources with less money. That's what we try to do. That's part of our culture at Maximum Effort. Parkinson's law, gas expands to fill the volume. Like, we try to keep timelines tight, because we also don't want to overthink things. We don't want to overprocess things. We don't want to overthink things. We want that to be part of our culture. Run towards and not away from. That's a good example of the Peloton ad. And even Satan a little bit too, which is the things that people say you can't talk about, we tend to want to run to. It's a basic, just, zigzag mentality. We do this on the film side too. It's like, what are the genres everyone's running away from? Sword and sandals, teen dystopia. Well, everything in Hollywood, and I think humanity, suffers from tremendous recency bias. And just because it's not popular now doesn't mean it can't be popular again. And then lastly, because I know we're a little challenged on time, is togetherness. All we are trying to do, and it is bring people together in smart, fun, and unexpected ways. With our films, with our marketing, with everything we do. We think togetherness is the ultimate scarcity good in 2021. Yeah, and you can talk about it within the political environment for sure, but even a basic media environment, there are no more networks. There are no more, or very few, MASH finales, right? Everything is fractured. So I think it takes more work to bring people together, and more active management to bring people together than ever before. And that's what we want to put our energy towards as a company and as people. And that's what we love doing. And I'll mention the production company because without that mindset of, we're going to go to, on the production side, you go out and you put projects together. We're going to go find some IP, and we're going to find a great writer, and we're going to put it together, and we're going to sell it. We like that mindset. We look at brands as IP, and we want to, and there's so many great brands with such great IP that we just want to develop around those brands. And, we're not looking to be their AOR or anything like that. We just think there's so many great stories to tell in ways that are fun and smart and unexpected. So that's what we like doing. And then lastly, all I'll say about this slide is one of the core things we do is try to not come to things, not play prevent defense. Aviation gin, there have been a lot of celebrity alcohols before. To do, literally go out there in a much more forward-facing way. Before Ryan, I would say, for the most part, the whole playbook for celebrity alcohols was like, look at me, I'm cool, I'm reserved, I don't really do anything. We looked at Casamigos as the great example, and you'd be hard-pressed to find one video with George Clooney in it on the internet for Casamigos. It was all behind the scenes. And Ryan put himself out there in a way that was probably he didn't need to. And what he says is he was surprised by how much committing to aviation actually enhanced his acting career. It's don't be afraid to take a swing. Mint Mobile, same thing. Like, after the success of Aviation Gin, I don't think anybody would have expected a low-cost premium wireless company. And there were lots of discussions amongst us about that. And it felt right, instead of something premium, let's go super practical. And lastly, Mountain, probably an unknown brand 3 months ago, 6 months ago. But what we have at Mountain is just, I think, transformative tech and a platform that will make connected TV the next, running connected TV ads as simple as running search and social. It is just killer tech. We were like, it's hard to believe it's so simple when you're taken through a demo, and the traditional path would have been to build up and try to sell to, a holding company or, one of the accounting firms or consulting firms now, or just kind of stay independent. And so we love the idea of partnering with ad tech, and culturally Mountain is exactly like us. And that was the most important thing for us, to culturally stay a place that likes to take chances, a place that loves creative, and a place that likes to move fast and do it with a joyous spirit. And over to you, Ali. I think you're the next slide, right?
Yeah. Thanks for that, George. I mean, so George talked a lot about some considerations on the creative side and what they think about as they're creating their campaigns. And so what I want to talk about now is, taking a lot of that into mind, and what do you do with these campaigns when they're actually created? How do you actually deploy them? Going back to the start of the conversation, television now is as nimble as social media. And so there's a couple of things that, if you're not already aware of, is this concept of connected TV as a performance marketing channel. And so one of the first things that means, and the thing that services this goal most neatly, is the fact that it can be self-serve. So being able to create a really innovative creative campaign, and then having the direct control to be able to upload that yourself and choose the audience targeting for that. I mean, that's tremendously powerful. Again, if you're trying to be topical, if you're trying to have your messaging go out there and to be part of that moment, just as George was kind of talking about, really having that self-serve capability and not all of the stuff that kind of goes into traditional sort of TV placement. I mean, that really enables that message to get out there as quick as possible. And then also audience targeting. So the thing that I find myself telling a lot of people about connected TV is the fact that it's programmatic with a different ad unit. And so anyone who's familiar with programmatic or just digital advertising generally, it's all those same capabilities get carried over. So, and the important thing here is not to sort of nerd out on the technology side of it, but it's meant to sort of enable even more creativity. So now you know that you can retarget visitors on your website with television advertising. What sort of ideas would that unlock? And so that's probably been one of the most satisfying aspects of working with connected television as a performance marketing platform, is being able to see CTV sort of by nature of being a programmatic channel unlock new levels of creativity. One of the interesting things from an audience targeting standpoint was as soon as we announced this merger with Maximum Effort, we got different variations of creative from George's team, and Ryan Reynolds was featured in our creative. And, just like you would with any other performance marketing channel, we got to deploy the two different types of creative, run an A/B test. We were able to target marketing professionals, and the creative sort of corresponded to that. It kind of spoke to marketers directly. So having that capability really influenced the creative process. And then finally, measurement. Being able to measure the impact of television is obviously hugely important. And those capabilities exist in the world of CTV. So rather than just kind of doing this brand campaign where you launch and you have these really abstract ways of measuring the success of it, instead now you have ways of measuring the success of that campaign, whether it be inside Google Analytics or visits on a website or conversions and transactions that take place on a website. All of that is certainly measurable now, which again feeds back to the creative process. Now you have different ways of measuring the success of your messaging generally. So finally, as we wrap up here, just a couple of takeaways. One is to just have a mechanism to be able to create creative quickly and as inexpensively as possible. One thing that George mentioned earlier is the fact that Ryan isn't in all of the creative that they create. A lot of their best campaigns don't feature Ryan at all. And the real recipe to the success of those campaigns has been the fact that they were able to move very quickly. And so that's something you absolutely want to keep in mind if you want to be sort of creating campaigns that are of the moment. Next, it's deploying these campaigns. You want the biggest reach. You want people to see them on the most impactful channel. Television certainly delivers that. So find yourself a television platform that's going to allow you to have that direct control and be able to deploy those campaigns yourself, and to the target audience of your choice. And then finally, testing and measuring. This is certainly something that performance marketers are very familiar with. They're doing this around the clock, but now you're able to kind of extend this same sensibility to the world of creative. So having that available to you really puts yourself in a different position as a marketer. You can still be a brand marketer and do these really effective, timely campaigns, but you can also, again, carry over those sensibilities of performance marketing. And so, Stuart, I'll throw it back to you, and we could do some Q&A here.
Great. Well, thanks, Ali. And I'm bringing George back up on screen as well. And let me just take these slides down. I think people will know it's Q&A as we go on. We don't need to necessarily announce it there. There we go. Listen, we want to take some questions from the audience, and we've got lots of them already queued up. They've been coming in throughout our presentation, but I want to invite everyone, if you do have a question for our speakers, Ali Haeri from Mountain and George Dewey, now Maximum Effort. Just submit your questions using the question tool. We're going to get to as many as we can over the next 10 minutes or so. If we don't get to your question, I always like to forward them over to our sponsor, so there is the opportunity for an offline response. A couple quick reminders here. Again, we had a few people asking, is the webinar being recorded? And of course, the answer is yes. All of our webinars are recorded and will be available on demand. We're going to send you a link to that on-demand version later this afternoon. So check your email, 3:30, 4 o'clock Eastern time. You're going to get that link. Share it with your colleagues. So again, as many people who want to watch it as they can. Better yet, have your colleagues register. We'll just send them the link directly. Keep it all easy. If you want a copy of the slides from today, you're going to find a PDF of that deck right now in Event Resources. So go on in there and grab that. All right, let's get into some of these questions that have been coming in, gentlemen, and we're going to talk a little bit about performance data. And so, George, I actually want to start with you. We always think of creatives and people who come up with and who develop the ad as not necessarily caring that much about the performance or adjusting by the performance. So how do you start to look at performance data to measure success on some of this stuff as you've gone on? I mean, obviously high performing in terms of some of the digital executions. But now that we're looking at things in a CTV world, are you looking at performance as part of all of this program?
Yeah, of course. I think there are really only two reasons you run something, and performance is one of them. The other is attention or breakthrough or brand, right? Like if you're not fulfilling one of those two things, you're kind of wasting your money. But I love performance, and that's one of the shifts that I that after I left McCann and went to 20th Century Fox, that was kind of instilled in me. And the best part of the Fox experience was I got a lot of exposure to the media department and the promotions department and the publicity department. And what it does is it kind of expands your mind to figure out or to recognize, like, unless you're making an impact, what's the point? There was a phrase that they would use around Fox is 2 commas or spare me the drama. Like, unless you're hitting 1 million people or more, what is the point of doing something? And I always love that because, part of the insecurity I had as a creative was, oh my gosh, I'm not digital enough. And then we see some of the digital efforts and even some of the awards efforts that only hit low thousands of people, but they like, great. But unless it's moving, if it's actually hitting a good amount of people, why do it?
Yeah. Totally get it. And so as you're talking about performance on your end, and I know you were alluding to this, what performance data, as people are now looking in taking a more creative approach to connected TV, developing ad campaigns very, very specific to the channel, as you see there. It is really much more of a performance channel. I mean, it's a different mindset in a TV environment. What should they be looking at? I mean, again, it's we can talk about brand lift studies, but that's not what we're really discussing here.
Yeah, it's certainly, one thing that I mentioned to people is a lot of my background's been in performance marketing, and one of the first sort of moments working at Mountain where I was truly like blown away as a performance marketer was the first TV performance report that I actually saw, where I actually saw site visits attributed to a television campaign that was running, and so that kind of blew my mind. But I'd say some of the metrics that you'd certainly see in running a TV campaign via connected television is going to be, like I mentioned, site visits. This is made possible by cross-device tracking because of course everybody who's kind of exposed to the advertisement while they're sitting on their couch, they have their phone open or their laptop open, and they follow up. And also conversion tracking. That's something that's the most actionable data that you can get, depending on the advertiser and what it is that they're advertising. Being able to track direct transaction performance based off of the messaging in their campaigns, that's certainly interesting. Another thing that we've kind of seen though that's been also fascinating has been the metrics that advertisers get from our platform are informing their linear TV advertising. And so some examples of that are, we offer a TV network report. So it's programmatic. It's not targeting the content, but rather the audience. And so that target audience may be watching anything online on streaming television. And so getting a network level report where you have an understanding of where your ads were most delivered, which publisher, and the conversion performance of it may influence a media buying decision on linear. So if you're getting a lot of activity on Discovery networks, for example, that may influence a offline media buy. Also, another one that's been interesting, kind of bringing it back to this topic of creative, is A/B testing. So another thing that we've seen an advertiser do is A/B test two entirely different 30-second spots, and one performs significantly better than the other, and that influences which one of the spots that they choose to run on linear television as well. So, of course, people are still going to be doing some advertising on linear, though we're seeing a lot of movement away from that. And so, some of the metrics are great for just understanding conversion performance, while others are also giving you some sort of insights to inform other types of media buying.
Got it. George, an interesting question came in from someone when they were talking about avoiding analysis paralysis, right? I mean, as we're talking about measurement and we're doing all that, and we're talking about A/B testing, it seems like it's a way to go through this. But as the person sort of talks about is how do you ultimately discourage that? And I guess they added in parentheses, is this just like a fear-driven phenomenon? And how do you sort of like ultimately commit to the bravery that your ideas are the right ideas going forward, which is something you've had a really great success at along the way. So,
sure, yeah. So part of this is, valuing efficiency over hours, right? If there's the more infrastructure you have, the more opinions there are, the more layers there are, and everyone obviously likes being heard and having their opinion and thinking about it this way, thinking about it that way. So efficiency is one. The second is we don't think we're as Ryan calls it, like advertising is disposable art. And so we really do view ads as just like disposable. There are only a few ads, probably 50 that anyone, certainly within our industry, that people oh my gosh, these maybe even 20 over the last how many years, 50 years, that people could name off the top of their head, and how many ads have actually been produced. So if you go into something thinking that, this is disposable, we haven't spent, $10 million in fee on it, we haven't spent $1 million in production on it, the company's not riding on it, It's certainly like loosens your sphincter a little bit. And then that's part of and then, lastly, like, it's okay to be wrong. I think it's okay to be wrong. It may not work, and that's okay too. You're not. It's not brain surgery that we're doing, and you do your best. You try, and if it doesn't work, you brush yourself off and you move on.
Got it. Let's move on to another couple here, and again, George, one of the things you talk about is sort of like going quickly and getting that mindset through. So for all the people who are out here and sort of caught in a lot of agency world as they do this, how do they start to break through, or even in a corporate environment and working, in corporate marketing and the number of companies that may now be looking to sort of do some of their own in-house creative, particularly that's how a lot of them are doing their social executions. How do they start to really shift the mindset into the social media mindset that you're talking about?
Well, to me, the oddest part about a creative department, at least when I was there, was is to shift into let me go and learn really what account people do. I went to business school. Just because I was like, all right, I want to learn accounting. I want to learn the inputs and outputs of a business. I think like as many different fields as you can learn, I think it'll make you a better creative, first and foremost, because you have a larger a palette to paint with. But secondly, I think you can see, maybe places for optimization, because I think creatives by trade are looking for, ways to do things slightly differently. And the second thing I'll say is, the most depressing moment I had, or one of the most depressing moments I had in marketing, was looking back at all my work and thinking like, oh, wow, this work exactly reflects the CMO's personality. I can't see me anywhere in here. Right. And so the moment that I realized that I was really just a pair of hands for that CMO, the closer you can be to understanding the brand and the CMO and hacking it that way, the better off you are. I don't know if and I know in some instances that's very difficult, but like it's the protective mindset that a lot of agencies have of creatives, of their departments, of territories, of clients, that I think stops them from getting into the good stuff, the scary stuff, but the good stuff.
George, as you've been doing some of the ads, a lot of the ads that you have done, initially ran digitally, right? Got their views as as it quickly turned around. As now CTV is more of an option, and the ability to actually create an ad and have it run right away. Is that altering your creative process? Are you looking at that any different? No, you just
no. I mean, to me, it's like so like CTV. I genuinely believe should lead to an explosion of creative trial and error, right? Because it's a literal explosion of inventory, right? You're not going to hit mass anymore. You're going to hit targets. You're going to hit, and you're looking for response. And so, I love, and everyone on this platform, like I love when people hack platforms. Like the first time someone hacked Facebook and did something really clever, or Twitter, or Instagram, or Pinterest, and to me, that's what CTV is. Like we have this we can upload and have something on within 48 hours, can give you feedback immediately. We can geo-target, we can audience target, the mind boggles with the amount of creative opportunity there is with CTV. And then the second thing I'll say is and it should, TV ads are amazing. TV ads are what I grew up on. This should be a new golden age of TV ads. And we have more ideas than time at this point. And luckily, we're matched with Mountain, who has the platform to withstand it. It's just like we just need more. We just don't have enough time. We have so many great ideas on how to use the platform.
Yeah, gentlemen, we've got more questions, but we don't have much more time. So I just want to take a second here. I want to thank you both for, again, great presentation. And George, thanks for sharing, again, your unique approach to everything. And the speed at which you can produce things that have just great success on a keep it simple, keep it cost effective, and just move forward. And Ali, again, understanding how all of this ultimately fits into that CTV world. It's great to really hear all that stuff. And again, thanks for both the presentation and taking some time to answer these questions. To our audience, again, if we didn't get to your question, I'm forwarding it over to our sponsors at Mountain afterwards. So there may be some opportunity there. If you want the slides, you're going to find them in event resources. You're going to check your email today, 3:34 o'clock, link to the on-demand version. Grab that. And lastly, adweek.com/webinars. Sign up for an upcoming webinar if you can. So
that clean sheet slide is not going to translate well to PDF form, but please enjoy it anyway.
We can add in a little doodle here as you want to.
Right.
Just add your own creative. As we do that, so we can challenge the audience there. We'll see what we get back. Listen, again, thanks so much, everyone. To our speakers today, to our audience, I know your days are busy. And lastly, we look forward to seeing everyone at an upcoming Ad Week webinar. Thanks all.